Well, we always like bringing Site Visit alum back into the fold. This has been a couple years, I think.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
It was,
Yes, it absolutely was.
Yeah.
I went back and checked. This is episode 92 as it will air. On episode 26, we had Bryan Reid, President of Kindred Construction, and he's here again joining us.
Hello.
Thank you guys for having me. Ecstatic to be back.
Did you also have the beard?
It comes and it goes.
It's facial hair day.
It is. Yeah.
Where's your beard? Have you ever grown a beard?
I don't know. I'd probably be divorced if I did.
I
Tana's like all about the clean and clear. I don't know what it is.
my youth was spent in sport, and so I've developed these superstitions, and facial hair is actually one of them. So if things are going great, I stick with what I've got. If things are going poorly, I tend to either grow one or shave it off depending on where it started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing well right now.
Things are going okay.
Yeah. I can see the beard's getting long.
Yes, it is. This is about as big as it's ever been. Yeah.
So you got quite the run.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
So if we see you again in like 2 weeks and you're clean shaven,
Yeah.
something's happened,
Something
good,
something monumental will have happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should
Positive
chat on
or
Thursday.
negative? Just positive.
Either way.
Or just a change.
Either way, just a change.
Okay. So if you get like a massive project, and
Yeah.
we'll come over with the bourbon.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I'll
Let's
give you
hope
guys
that-
a shout.
Okay, cool.
No, that's
All right.
awesome.
Yeah.
That resonates with me. I've been getting the flow going, but I think I'm gonna cut it all off. I think
Right?
I've had enough.
I think it looks good.
Oh, what? Really? Everyone's I don't know. It
that's
pulls
cool.
back too much, and I just want to be really cautious of the whole hairline thing. You know.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, yeah.
So it bugs. Anyway,
I got a question. I went to your office years ago. Start of SiteMax.
Right.
Like your dad, I met with
Yes.
way back.
Right.
You guys still in the same office on Broadway there?
We are not. No,
Oh.
we've purchased an office building over on Pender and McLean in East Van.
Pender and McLean.
Yeah.
Where's McLean?
So it's like a 9-iron removed off of Clark and Hastings. And bought a building there, renovated it sort of soup to nuts, and we've got our tool rental business that operates throughout there and satisfies the archaic I-2 zoning requirements. And then we've got the rest of our guys and gals up in there where we run our operations out of.
Okay, wait. So tool rental business. You guys always had that?
We've had it for the last number of years. It's an internal group that satisfies the needs across our sites. It's not anything that we do externally yet. I think that we might look to
I
get
see.
there. But it is a good thing that we did have it because of the zoning requirements for us to satisfy the industrial need under the I-2 zoning. We
I
needed
see.
it. And so it was something
cool.
that ended up working out.
Right. So you needed like some kind of a retail industrial kind of deal there?
Yeah, so a contractor doesn't fit the industrial billing under the zoning requirements,
That's
but
cool.
a
Nice.
tool rental business does.
that's sweet. It's always fun to, work your way around things and get in there and make it happen.
So just to be clear here, so you basically rent to your own projects then? So you have a number of companies and you rent to them
Correct.
in and out?
Yeah.
Okay. So no one outside of the Kindred umbrella at
No,
this point?
it's
'Cause there's not enough tools, I guess. It's not a going concern enough to have multiples of everything kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing as much as we can just to keep up with the needs on our own sites just for now.
That's awesome. Nice.
All right. Well, for those that didn't catch episode 26, why don't you give us a brief Coles Notes of how you got to where you are right now currently? So yourself in construction, and you've got a great background as well. But then also, what does Kindred do? But start with yourself.
Sure. So I've been at Kindred now for 12 years. Prior to my time at Kindred, I spent my time growing up as a product of this industry. My dad started Kindred just shy of 43 years ago now. So he and my mom sort of bootstrapped it from their attic at the time, and we've grown from there. Both my brother and I, who are now business partners at Kindred, were encouraged not to get into the construction space for a variety of reasons. And so I went off and I did law, and my brother went off and did finance. My experience in law was short-lived. The goal was actually to be in professional sports. I would have loved to have been general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays as a, failed athlete. But that didn't shake itself out. And so I ended up taking a job shortly after law school, actually, when I realized that practicing wasn't necessarily going to be long-term for me, with a real estate developer down in Dallas, a company called Jefferson Properties Incorporated. And so I shot down there and worked in their acquisitions group. And over the course of a couple of years, we then entered global financial crisis. So a really good time to, leave school and get out into it. And the company at the time, we were just shy of about 1,500 people, if I can recall correctly. And by the time that I left, we were around 35 or 40. And so a pretty precipitous decline. And so either a fabulous learning experience or a really terrible couple of years. It depends on how you look at it. And with the world being in a relatively soft spot economically, there wasn't really anybody out in Dallas that was going like gangbusters. So the opportunities there were few and far between. I was ready to move back to Vancouver and get my roots back sorted in the place that I'd always known as home. And my girlfriend at the time, wife now, wasn't necessarily keen on doing that just yet. And so we ended up shooting over to Asia. We identified Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai as 3 cities that we would have liked to entertain as places to live for a little bit. And we both fell in love with Shanghai. I ended up meeting a fellow named Chris Cuff there through an introduction from a Collier's guy here, Kelly Heed. And I took a role there working in their brokerage group, primarily in tenant representation and some modest experience in the commercial side, doing some investments for international client groups. And China wasn't going to be forever for me, but it was an amazing experience. It was cut a little shorter than I had thought it would be. I was home for the Olympics. I had a conversation with my dad, who was going through succession planning at the time, and his approach sort of fell flat with the staff. Everybody was very keen until it came time to actually have to buy the shares. And so people thought it was going to be gifted. My dad didn't. And when we were sitting there having lunch up in Whistler, I was like, well, why don't I buy it? And that was sort of the start of about a year-long conversation that saw me move home in February 2011. And I guess the rest is sort of history. When I joined Kindred at the time, there was no really definitive role. It was just with the understanding that there needed to be somebody that was going to help support the transition of Dick out of the business, try to see what we wanted to do next. Kindred 2.0, if you will. And 12 years later, here we are. And it's been a good ride for the last 12 years.
That is even or unpacking it again. There's so many details in there that I had completely forgotten about.
Seems like you're 80 years old.
I know, there's so much experience in there. It's crazy.
Industry and kids, I probably look 80. Yeah.
No, not at all. Two quick questions. In Dallas, 1,500 down to 35?
Yeah.
And did you make it through a lot of those cuts? Or what?
Yeah, I think that they had a misconception on how extensive my legal background was. And so I was asked to stick around to help with some of the dismissals. And so it was an uncomfortable role. I was there to help acquire properties, at least initially. And that wasn't exactly what we did. I think we bought one site while I was there, and I was there for about 2.5 years. The 1,500 people were spread coast to coast. And so from Miami through to LA, we had people that were doing certain things that you were reading about, at the tail end of that massive collapse. So cross-collateralized debt, just going absolutely
nuts.
So
this is 08, 09 kind of thing?
Yeah. And so we had some cowboys in certain areas of the country that were, riding high on some really good times. And then when the music stopped, they were left holding the bag. And in the Southwest, we had a pretty stable approach over the last few years because we hadn't bought anything. And we hadn't had that massive ramp up that then had that responsive ramp down. And so our group sort of stayed intact, and while the rest of them sort of fell to the wayside as there was nothing else happening. Banks came calling for keys, or they would ask us to manage assets that they couldn't sell because they didn't want to take the loss just yet. And so we stuck around there for a little bit. My boss was awesome about it. And he said, do you really want to be a part of this for the next little bit? Like, we can keep you here for another year or so and see if things change. And I was like, well, I don't know. And I don't know what else I'm going to do. And he's like, well, why don't, you just take a couple bucks? And I ended up playing a bunch of golf for a few months and hoped that things would turn around. And they didn't. And then at that point, it was just time to move on.
Only back when you got to fire a bunch more people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's quite the ride to be along for. Okay, and then was it never in the cards ever to take over the family business?
I don't know. I don't think so. Like, there was never that conversation over dinner or anything. It was not something that Dick or my mom Brini actively encouraged. They wanted us to go and do the things that made us happy and live elsewhere. Both Matt and I had an interest in being international for a little bit. And so I think that made it pretty challenging to think that the eventuality would be us both working at a very localized company that we grew up within. It was also a modest undertaking. Like the business that my parents built was awesome. And it was this fantastic, tight-knit, family, wholesome group. But it wasn't necessarily a group that could support what 3 families wanted to do, perhaps in different areas, being my folks, my brother and his family, and then my wife and ours. And so we just hadn't really put it all together. But then when the opportunity arose and I was sitting there not necessarily in love with what I was doing, it was something to chase and see if there was something to it.
Oh. So we talked about this on a couple of other podcasts about, labor shortage, trying to get people into construction and all that. And one of the sort of recurring themes is that you have to change the mindset of the parents of the kids to say, go into trades. You don't need to go to university and get $100,000 debt under your belt or $200,000 debt or whatever it is. So did your parents, was there this, we want you to have something we weren't able to have? Is that like what was, or what was that?
I don't think so. I think that,
or is there was a self-imposed stigma to the thing that they built?
Well, I think that the stigma is that construction's tough.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I don't think that there was anything other than that.
Okay.
A forever memory of my dad is that when he came home from work, he sat in his chair, he had scotch, he opened up his newspaper, and you left him alone. He needed that 30 minutes, whatever, to decompress. And he was the most engaged, awesome dad ever. But you came to appreciate the level of stress that he was going through on a day-to-day basis. Right. A staff member that's not doing what they have promised that they would, or a client that's not paying, or a municipality that's giving you the runaround, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And he wore all of that because it was a small company. And so every single problem became his. And I think because of that, he had this lens that said, if you can do something different that might be better and more enjoyable and something that you really love and are invested in, then chase it. Probably part of the reason that I ended up back is because I didn't find that. I didn't find it in law. While I did enjoy my time in the various other areas of real estate that I was a part of, there was nothing that really sung to me. It wasn't like I came home from day one working in the brokerage side or in the development side, and I looked at Michelle and I was like, that's it, I've got it. Like, this is my passion forever and ever. I felt that much more at Kindred than I ever did before. And so it's been nice to know that that feeling is now here and I'm invested in something, and perhaps it would have been sooner had we had those conversations as a family about a legacy and what we wanted to do with the second generation of the business. But fortuitously, it seems to have worked out.
Is there a gross revenue uptick since the boys took over Daddy's business?
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, when we were, and there was sort of fits and starts with how a small business responds. You land a big project, your revenue changes on a year-to-year basis, but they were around 15 million a year or so, and we're comfortably over the 9 figures now, and so that's where we're sort of sitting and aiming.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's really cool. Was Matthew, did he come around at the same time as well? Like, was this the same lunch in Whistler?
No, it was he wasn't at that lunch. Oh. So Matt worked for JP Morgan in Hong Kong, and that was his, he loved Hong Kong. And then I think we sort of saw what happened with the Gilded Age of the financial industry there. Yeah. And with that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow sort of dissipating at the tail end of the GFC, he started to consider what life might be outside of banking. Him and Cecina were thinking about starting a family. I think that they looked to Vancouver as an option that made a lot of sense there. And the business was growing to the point that I'm not a back of the house guy. Like, I don't have a financial background, and I put my hand up and I was like, this is something that I could use a lot of support with, and would you be interested in? And sort of one thing came after the next, and he showed up about 6 years after I did.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it wasn't even right away or anything.
No.
Wow. It's an interesting family business story, and especially in construction. Usually these things are just, it's not like it's a de facto, you're succeeding us.
Yeah.
But like oftentimes it's just like 1 generation, 2 generation, 3 generation, and it's just
I think it's
year.
pretty cool.
It's very cool how you guys came back around.
Yeah, I think that it's great and it's not.
What's the not part?
Yeah.
I think that it would be nicer in certain instances if Matt and I had that construction pedigree. And so while we grew up with it, it's different. You come with a different level of credibility when you sit in there and you're like, this is all I've ever done. It's all I ever know.
I see.
And there's good things and bad things to that. I think that I take an approach to business that is different than someone that may have, gone to BCIT, joined as a project coordinator, turned into a PM under the ownership of the business, and then eventually grown into an executive. My approach is going to be very different than theirs. It's just how we grew up. But there's certainly parts of me that goes, you know what, if I was able to tell everybody the building that I built when I was 26 and working for company XYZ, that it might mean a little bit more. But who knows?
But I would say that there's your approach as business guys, your curiosity for possible mitigation of risk is probably a different perspective than others too. So and you can always rent the knowledge too.
So yes,
I can't rent the risk mitigation mindset.
Yeah, I think that the wrong person sitting here actually. Matt is the risk mitigation guy more than me. I'm a glass half full that tends to be flowing over. I see the positive in almost everything. I find that I have to. But it has made us very, very aware of having to hire and retain the absolute best and make sure that there's an exceptional level of comfort and confidence because our VPs and our directors and our PMs and our supers and everybody on down through the line are doing things that we need to trust them implicitly within. And so that creates a kinship with ourselves and our staff. And I think that shows in how Matt and I approach things simply because we need that.
The kindred spirit.
The kindred spirit, exactly.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, team built.
Nice. Okay.
Well, you probably have some long-standing employees that carry that, that construction experience that goes a ways back. What is the longest-standing employee at Kindred?
Chico Audio. Chico's been there since day one.
What? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
what was his first role? What's his role now?
Well, I don't know. So when the door opened, there was like 6 of them. Yeah. And so I think they were all doing the same things. They probably had their pouches on and were out on a house. Chico was a PM, or I guess he would have been a site manager, construction manager, whatever the term would have been when there wasn't a definition of roles between site and office for home building. But his role has effectively not changed. He's still our most trusted senior residential project manager.
Well, there's all that construction knowledge and know-how and experience that you need jumping in. You got your guy, I mean, and many others, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What's the biggest project you got going on right
now? We are working towards completing a 358 condo project for the Panatch Group in Port Moody. It's called 50 Electronic Avenue. So phase 2 should be occupied here early this fall.
Okay. Yeah. And then the smallest, you're doing high-end homes still?
Yeah, our homes are not our smallest. They're some of our biggest, actually. We seem to have developed a niche after going through rebranding in some of the most bespoke, largest homes in the province. But I don't know, what's the smallest one we're doing right now? A $2 million retrofit of a heritage building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So we crossed the gamut.
Yeah. Really quick then for our audience and updating us as well, the full scope of Kindred and the projects you guys do.
Sure. So we remain pretty broad spectrum. Yeah. As I just said, we were doing a repositioning of a heritage building in New Westminster from a fairly decrepit space into this really nice, lively, small apartment building. We're doing our first automobile dealership for DeLowry, which is really exciting for us. It's awesome to be growing that relationship. We're working on a century-old office building down in Gastown, doing a renovation for Allied Properties. We're doing some modular construction for Hiem Housing and Squamish First Nation. We're doing a bunch of, I guess I would term it boutique mixed-use and multifamily work, and so anywhere from 40 units to 358. Some high-end townhome projects, some on the Sunshine Coast, some here locally, and then under our Customs Homes banner, we're doing several high-end bespoke homes as well, Whistler, University Endowment Lands, and then Spanish Banks.
Have you bifurcated those 2 business units completely brand-wise?
Yeah, we have. So Actually, I had a conversation, I think, about 11 years ago when my dad introduced me to James Chang, and James was kind enough in saying that there was a marketing disconnect, that people that are his clientele on the high-end single-family side don't necessarily want to work with a builder that is broad-based. They want to work with somebody who's a specialist. And so even though we were internally, we suffered a marketing disconnect externally. And so anybody that was a superintendent or a PM on the single family inside never really jumped into that commercial space. It's just an entirely different approach. And so we realized that we needed to do something about that. And so led by Cecina Shankute, we went through a rebranding initiative about 4.5 years ago we started. And right prior to COVID, I think it would have been the tail end of 2019, we'd completed it. And it allowed us to recognize that there needed to be that very definitive space for the single family side. And so it's now Kindred Custom Homes. The rest of our commercial work, so like anything outside of that, we would term commercial, remains under the Kindred Construction flag.
Is it still the 3DK?
It is, yeah. So
just a different color or something?
It's black.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, black and white. And cool. It'll say Kindred Custom Homes. I should have brought some logos here and shown you guys. But yeah, it helps create that definition that we need, and it allows the people that are working within our office in that space to know that they're valued and appreciated, and that they're focused on just like anybody on our commercial side. I think that at times there's this get lost in the wash just because the commercial vehicle is bigger. Yeah. And we'd like to appeal to some of these newer, really fresh, modern architects as well. And they needed to see that we had changed, we were modernizing, and getting ourselves towards the groups that they wanted to work with.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Pull that microphone a little bit closer.
Sorry.
You can just pull the arm in there. So is there in the office, is there a definite tribal difference between the blacks and the reds?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. We've got... we're a pretty
it's like checkers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're a pretty tight knit group. The space is all open in our new office. There's no real definition to it, so it's a pretty tight knit group.
No ping pong team.
No, we're getting a ping pong table and a pool table coming soon.
That's the one over there if you need it.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Okay,
it's pretty sweet actually.
Okay.
Well, one of the cool things that we can do, or we get to do, when we bring people back, is we can do a quicker recap of who everybody is and get into some nitty-gritty issues and things that are really facing us in construction. But maybe really quick before we get into that, you're also venturing into some new territories.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
So we're somewhat location agnostic and always have been. Based on following client relationships. And so we've had experience in the past where we've gone down to the United States or through almost anywhere in the province of BC out into Alberta and Ontario, but they'd been one-offs and not sort of planting roots to see if we can establish a presence in that market consistently. So we've changed that narrative a little bit recently. So Sunshine Coast is becoming an area of focus for us. And so we've got a large project underway there with Kind Developments, and are working through pre-construction on a second one with a group called PCRE. They call themselves the largest developer you've never heard of. And so it's a client that we're super excited to be working with. And then super exciting for us is we are planting our flag in the Alberta market. And so we were afforded an introduction to a gentleman that gave us the opportunity for a 5-project portfolio. And what that did is it created a bit of... there was enough weight to the opportunity that we could support growth within the market. And so you can hire a director, you can hire multiple site staff, you can get a project manager, an estimator, get an address. Those are all things that we hadn't had the opportunity before. We'd chased the Alberta thought a couple times previously and fallen short. It was too transitory. We were, me flying back and forth, a PM flying back and forth, and that just proved unsuccessful. Mm-hmm. And so we've taken this opportunity. We've got a site coming up next year in Spruce Grove, Alberta, where my lovely wife and all of her family are from. And so that's something that's near and dear to me, which will be exciting. And obviously we've got eyes and ears everywhere, and so I can be a little bit more assured of its success. And then we've got 4 projects in and around Greater Calgary. And so that first one is either starting September-ish, and if not, then probably spring next year as well.
Wow, crazy. So let's say in the fall, How many projects do you have going at once from the residential custom homes and the...
So we probably have, well, on the home side, we have 2 or 3 going at any given time. It's a modest undertaking from a project volume perspective.
Yep.
And then on the commercial side, we fluctuate anywhere between 8 and 12. I think coming up on this fall, we'll probably have 10 underway in the commercial side. But I should probably schedule a follow-up with you guys for October, because we've got 4 projects that should start between now and Halloween. But as we've all seen, this market is anything but reliable, whether it's finances, permits, or otherwise. And so we'll see. But it should be a busy next few months.
Wow, crazy.
Well, that's impressive. And it does seem like you guys move fast. You get a lot done in a short period of time. So
we try.
The updates will be always welcomed. This is a good segue. You just said permitting, how fast people go, municipalities, everything like that. You also talk about a little bit of taking on more projects, getting into new types of projects, new markets, efficiencies, investing into efficiencies. What do you want to dig into here? Which one is a good place to jump to here first?
Oh, I don't know, man. You tell me. I'm just the guest.
Yeah,
You guide. I'm happy to jump into any of those. I think that all of those are really prescient topics for construction right now.
100%. Okay, well, because it's fresh in our minds. Permitting, municipalities, just slow moving. I don't know, bureaucratic stuff, whatever it happens to be. Let's jump into that in terms of how that's slowing down projects, putting product out there, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I think that anybody that I know in this industry, the only thing that we ask for is reliability. It's not even necessary expediency or for somebody to do something faster than we expect. It's just to meet a deadline that's provided. And we don't put our hand up and go, we need this in 6 months. Yeah. We let them tell us how long it's going to take. And it's almost uniform for that, from the municipalities down through to the trades. Like, we establish schedules based on the information that we're provided. And so municipalities are just coming up short when it comes to meeting the deadlines that they provide. There's too many voices in the room, or actually perhaps there's too many voices in the building and they never get into the same room. And so one of the things that would be nice is if there was a point of continuity within any district, municipality, township, whatever the case may be, so that you had somebody that was accountable for the entire duration of your project, and not just to get through permitting, but also to see it through to occupancy.
Right.
Like, how invested would they be if they could actually have a tangible benefit to the community in which they're serving, to go, I saw this from A through Z. And they're not provided that. I think that secondary to that is that there's just too many rules and not enough areas for people to be constructive and trying to get to where we all want to get. Like, we all know, like, for us, we deal in housing almost exclusively, if not primarily, and we all know that we need more of it, and yet we seem to put obstacles in play to make it exceptionally challenging to get there from a municipality perspective. And so you've got every single party that will tell you that their goal is to deliver more housing, and then yet you submit something and planning just stops it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And so it's a bit of a mess. So reliability would be great. Transparency would be phenomenal. And accountability and ownership of a file, I think, is what helps you get there.
So what did Ken Sims, saying he's going to be having some sort of AI for permitting?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. No, he's saying that he wants to implement this to speed things up.
And he's going to hire a director of AI. I think that so the thoughts are all good. I think that implementation takes a lot of time for something that is new. Like, we have problems that can be solved just by people being intelligent in approach. And what we tend to do is we just add more people to it, or we try to create this really weird, unique solution. It's like, so landscaping is holding up a permit because they don't like what you've picked out of their schedule of trees. Like, what a total joke.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Get them into the room with planning or with permitting and go, what trees do you want? The developer will say yes. We'll say yes.
But typically what's happening a lot of this time between the date that you say they blow by all the time, that you want that predictability. If they say it's going to be X amount of time until you get your approval or whatever that is, that whole lag is the wait before they can look at it. And the look at it part, sometimes they've bitten off more they can chew, and they realize you think you're going to get an approval that day, and they go, oh, we have some questions on it.
Yeah, I think that
You know what I
one,
mean?
yeah. So it can be very prescriptive until it gets to be overly burdensome. And if the architect or whomever it was that was responsible for submitting the entire package knew that there was 10 boxes that had to be ticked, and immediately upon submitting it, there was some form of technology that said you've missed one box and spat it out immediately.
Yep.
It would be really nice to have that. That's attainable. Like that's there. That technology
That's
exists.
an AI thing that could be quite quick
that
to do.
technology exists.
It knows what it's looking for.
Because you're exactly right. What will happen is that you'll submit that, and 9 months later, someone will tell you missed the 9th box.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's brutally frustrating. And then
Can't
you
say brutal.
Sorry.
Remember that?
Is that one of the not allowed
there was
banned university
there
words?
there was that there Brendan Schaub thing. He says you can't say brutally. Remember?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Yes.
I'll send it to you after
Okay.
this. Yeah. Total outside joke.
So I think it would be nice if there was that prescriptive nature of submissions, and then so there was transparency within the submission. I was invited to a conversation with Burnaby, and so ICBA facilitated this dialogue with Mayor and some of people within planning, and that's what we spoke about. We're like, let us be able to log on and see the submission and see that if we've missed something, we know what we've missed, so we don't have to wait 9 months, and then it's our fault. And I'd be more than happy to be held accountable if we didn't get our, traffic plan in as part of the submission, and that was on us.
Yeah.
If there's something that I can turn around and go, well, it's with Steve or Jennifer or whomever, and let's make sure that they understand that rather than waiting 9 months to be told, it's going to save a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah, and also weeds out the people who suck at it and keep providing terrible plans.
Very true. Very true.
There's a ton to unpack in this one. I did a lot of like end-to-end DP, BP through variants, all sorts of different things, and it really is. You just have to be relentless about the details. And if you have a better submission package than someone else, you're going to get months ahead of somebody else. But that's weird and that's terrible.
So
that's the case.
It is weird and it's terrible that they require that level of fastidious detail for something that is early in the process.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that one of the unfortunate things is that that's become the case, as well as becoming like the squeaky wheel has become what's required.
Yes.
Like, nobody wants to be that incessant, annoying person, but you get more attention.
You do.
And so without the ability to hold people account, to know where the issues arise or who's at fault, you just keep yelling at the same person.
Yep.
And you go, tell me. And eventually someone's just like, holy smokes. And they tell you because they get so tired of it. But then at a certain point, they probably turn you off and you get no responses at all. It's a difficult thing to do and manage, but we have to all do better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what comes into play, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because so many things are checklists with submissions. So many things are based on, bylaws, community design guidelines, urban design, whatever it happens to be, just meeting certain requirements. Yes, you could feed that through a piece of software that then reads a digital set of drawings and goes through and says, oh, you missed this, you missed that, fix it. But personalities come into play within municipalities.
Totally.
Right? And you can get to certain things and then you hit, and this is, I don't really have anything to lose in the conversation, but you hit like an urban planner or a landscape architect or something like that, and you get sidelined. You just it just roadblocks the whole thing. But it could be anything in there. It just could be a personality that just takes it totally off course. And we're talking months.
Yeah, you're talking the someone flexing their muscle, which gets in the way of everything.
Yeah, it can become painfully frustrating for sure. I think that we're in a people business. Like construction is not product based; it's service oriented, and everybody down the entire food chain needs to be rowing in the same direction. But we're just not. And I think that that's one of the things that I find frustrating. It's that people elect to flex their muscle when it's completely opposed to the goals that we all have. Somebody wants to nitpick on a detail that can be easily adjusted by an amendment or done with the stroke of a key, and yet they elect to hold on to it and hold it over somebody and cost months towards getting towards rental housing. We've all got, like myself and all the other contractors that we compete against, all have stories of rental buildings that we should have started months ago. And there's a tangible effect to what these people are doing, and I don't think that they're held to account. So one of the conversations I've had with my team about a portfolio of work that we're currently on right now is actually doing that analysis to go, if we had started 3 years ago rather than now,
Yeah.
what is the incremental cost that is the result of that delay?
Yeah.
Because I think that that's what could facilitate some pretty good dialogue with council and planning to go, look, this building that costs us $70 million today, had we navigated this better collectively, and we made mistakes and the architect made mistakes, but you guys did too, then 70 million could have been 50 million of construction costs.
Yeah.
And the financing costs could have been halved or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And you would have been solving a problem 3 years sooner. Mm-hmm. Any one of these things should be a part of a conversation. I don't think that we have enough of that, sort of that lessons learned, like every company does it internally. Like how often do we go back and show people at planning or whatever, like unnecessary rezoning submissions rather than going straight to DP, what that impact actually is. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's some lessons that we could probably help teach municipalities.
Well, speed solves a lot of problems mm-hmm. in terms of we're dealing with, we talked about it earlier, there's a huge influx of people in our country, for one, crossed over 40 million this past week or month or whatever it was. There's a huge requirement for more units. Faster rental properties, faster things out there obviously means, the quicker those can get tax dollars, all sorts of different things. But efficiencies mean, in some scenarios, for your business is probably money in your pocket when you're efficient.
Of course. And
efficiencies maybe through a municipal process might mean less people.
Yeah.
Which is not a desired thing necessarily for the municipality.
No, quite often the solution that we see with municipalities is more people.
Yeah.
I'm yet to see that be something that makes it faster.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's a tough conversation to have. You're right.
This is a difficult one.
Yeah. I'll leave that to the heavyweights, the developers that are having the direct impact. I'm just here to help.
No, I hear you. And I know that's what it really can get down to is a conversation that I'm sure these things are happening, right?
Of course.
But when a new mayor like Ken Sim says, he's a tech guy, he's an entrepreneur, he's bringing in tech stuff, he knows the repercussions of that, mm-hmm. right? Full well.
Well, I mean, every 5 new people you hire, you need another manager, and the manager's slowing everything down.
Right.
Because, so I mean, it's like it doesn't always have a net effect of what you're looking for.
No, I think that we've seen that in the tech space over the last 9 months. These companies aren't crumbling and they're letting go of 15 to 75% of their staff.
Yeah,
it shows that there's probably some redundant roles there. I'm sure that there's the same things that could be said around a lot of the infrastructure and the employment base within a bunch of our government institutions.
Do you find that within the culture of your company versus the sort of the city planning departments, is there this complete divide of they're this way, we're that way?
I don't think so. I think that as you guys were saying earlier, it is a personality driven thing. I think that there's some people that are phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that there's people that want exactly the right thing, to do it exactly the right way, as quickly and expeditiously as possible.
Yeah.
And they're motivated. But not all of them are aligned in that approach.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
It's crazy. It becomes a game to play, right? You know who your favorites. You know who the people are that can move a piece of paper from the bottom of a pile to the top of a pile, which again is months.
Yep.
Right. Hey, if I miss something, you're going to send me an email back, and they'll be like, yes, I will. And they do.
Totally.
Right. So you find those little things, and it's basically connecting dots consistently and making sure you join. Okay, I need to hold that person's hand, and then that one over there, and then things can get really done. But it's a baby. It involves a lot of time and attention.
It really hasn't really changed over the years when you think about it. Really, all it is it's the hey, don't worry, I know a guy.
Yeah,
it kind of gets to that. It's always been like that. You can push it through because you got an inside relationship with somebody, and it's not necessarily a nefarious situation that you became friendly with that person. It's just time in the same room.
Well, I think that it goes both ways, right? The builder, the developer has probably proven themselves to be a reliable partner of the people in planning or in council.
Yeah.
So if you ask for a favor, it's provided, and then you execute what you say you're going to do, it becomes a lot easier for that person to assist you the next go.
Yeah.
So groups that show that very real ability to continue to be successful, it makes it a lot easier. If you're sitting behind a desk at City and someone calls and goes, look, like, I need to push this through, they know that when they give you your permit, you're actually going to start. You're not going to flip your site.
Yeah.
You're actually going to deliver the housing in the model in which you said you're going to do. You're not going to try to change something around and make it so that the city looks bad. It goes both ways. And if they can rely on us as partners, then hopefully they can speed things up.
Wow. I'd like to, it sounds ripe for some kind of like accreditation type of system that you're a preferred builder for this.
No, the accreditation system was the CP program.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the whole concept of someone manages your file.
Yeah.
But then you paid for the CP. I remember that now.
Right.
I couldn't remember what it was called. Explain that.
So the city is effectively third-party the responsibility around drawing reviews and to make sure that things are supported, whether it's code or whatever. And that is a good thought in practice, but you then need to give them that rope.
Yeah.
So what it's done effectively is it's created a double review because they give it to the CP and then the CP submits it and they review it anyways.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like, well, what happened? What's the point?
I know.
So there's a cost associated with that, and then you don't even get the time savings.
Yeah.
I think that anybody would be willing to allow a third party to be responsible. Like, they're putting their letters up, it's their insurance on the line.
Yeah.
Like, allow that to be the case. Don't get in the way. And then all of a sudden there's this, muddy water that, was it the city that approved it? Was it the CP? What actually happened? If you're providing somebody that level of authority, then get them properly accredited. And when they are, trust them to do their job and allow whomever the applicant is to support that cost and bake it into their project cost.
Yeah.
Because then it's what we spoke about at the very beginning. It's reliability, whether it's timeframes or otherwise. Like, if that process can help, then let it happen.
I think you noted here as well the what was it, like the community costs as well, associated costs, your development costs, etc.
Well, I was reading an article on the Western Investor just yesterday, and Chard has a new development going on down on Southwest Marine, and they were saying that the sewer connection fee that didn't exist at the time that they went through permitting 3 years ago would have cost that project $2.5 million. I'm ballparking here. It was 2-something million. I was like, that's a lot. And then on top of that, you've got your community amenity charges and every other number of layers of fees. And these should exist. There needs to be an investment made to better the infrastructure and make the city a better place for affording you the ability to have such a massive business undertaking. But I think it speaks to, again, having a level of reliability around what those charges look like and not making them so onerous that they cost you far too much. In the same article, there was a fellow at Ryan ULC that was suggesting that 30-something% of the average rent of a one-bedroom is attributable to costs associated that are government imposed throughout the development process. And so if you're renting a $2,500 a month one-bedroom, you're paying $860 as a result of the costs that are allocated to fees. And that's not all going to come off. If those fees don't exist, the market will support the rents that they can charge. But it certainly has an impact. And I'm sure that we could do a little bit better.
That's really weird. Because there's obviously there's a price per square foot ceiling to some degree. I mean, we've seen it here getting crazy. Some of these new buildings are $3,000, $4,000 a foot.
Yeah.
I mean, this is getting bananas. Like, this is New York prices.
I know.
So
no New York incomes.
Exactly.
No.
Well, I mean, we don't need it here because it's basically it's different kind of money, right?
Yeah.
But for the lower scale there, for properties to be medium sized stuff, like I find it crazy that Metrotown or like Willingdon Burnaby is more money than downtown. And if that's because of that, obviously developers want to make money. That's one part, and they should.
Yeah.
But if a certain percentage of that is because the cities were slow. It's 30%. That is really annoying, because that really should not be. And so that means it's a self-inflicted injury that the city's doing to itself, to its people, and the taxes pay those people.
Yes,
they're doing it poorly.
I agree. I think that it goes two ways. Like, I am a supply side guy. I think that supply is going to be like our best opportunity to cure the sickness that we have, that is such an expensive real estate market on both the for purchase and for rent. But then from a fees perspective, yeah, you're exactly right. The amount of money that a developer is forced to cover on a municipality's behalf, they have to make sure their pro forma allows for that. Because then if they don't, and if they're just doing it to be altruistic, then they're never going to get a bank to lend the money. So it's never going to work. The rents are a product of that.
That would be really cool if there was a delay kickback percentage that went off your property taxes based on how poorly the city did it.
So you pay your CAC or whatever, and if you don't get your permit by date X, then they give it back?
Something that holds cities accountable for their delays, and if that's going into that price.
I'd love that sort of motivation. Get some people working past 4 o'clock.
Yeah. All right, well...
Towed that line as tight as we could, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks.
No, it's good conversation unpacking a real issue that's impacting developers, builders, everybody.
The average Canadian.
Yeah, yeah, right down to the consumer. Can we talk about costs? Talk about efficiencies, maybe directly impacting Kindred. Let's talk about the volatility of costs.
Sure. So I think we're all still waiting for the skies to clear and that level of normalcy to come back that we all felt we had pre-COVID. We had hoped that it was going to be 2022, and then rate cycles kicked in May, and it threw everyone for a loop again. And it seems to just be relentless and unending. The analogy I use is you're surfing and you're just caught with, as soon as you go out for a breath of air, you just get smashed by another wave. Everything remains volatile. I think that one of the things that we could be more uniform about is how that's communicated to everybody within the market. We are a constant product of the narrative that we create. And so we tell everybody that things are okay and that things are going to get better, and that, numbers are stabilizing and everybody feels good about themselves and they go about their business. And I don't think that's the honest truth. No. And so we haven't seen any stability come back. We saw it happen in certain scopes for certain amounts of time. But then something bizarre happens and it's totally back to these sort of massive increases and volatile changes month to month. We did a Class B for a project 18 or 19 months ago, and we tendered it, just closed the tender 2 months ago, and the project was up 27%. And so we were probably, there was adjustments in earthwork and a couple things that had changed that probably made like an apples to apples comparison about 15%. But, a year and a half ago, people were spinning the story that things were starting to get better, and they haven't. Mechanical remains an exceptional challenge. Glazing still a bit of an issue. Concrete supply is crazy. We're going to be coming up on an aggregate shortage, and it's going to get tougher. Wood remains volatile, even though it's down right now. I don't think that people are betting on futures remaining at this level for the next 3, 4, 5 years when we're going to go through a ramp up in rental construction. Labor is very tight. The cost associated with that remains expensive. And it goes on and on and on. Electrical packages, et cetera. And so we can find these very real examples that are positive. Cost of shipping containers from China is down, and so product should be less expensive, but it's not. Some of these larger projects, towers downtown, aren't happening, so labor should be more available, but it's not. And as long as we're all aware of that and saying the same things, I think that people can plan for that. And I guess planning for volatility is a bit of an oxymoron, but at least everybody's in the same boat. And so we counsel our clients to carry much higher contingencies than we would have ever in the past. We carry very high contingencies when we're putting budgets in front of people for the first time, simply because I don't want to be providing somebody terrible news a year from now, that's the result of us not making them aware. And so the market remains crazy. It's cost us a couple projects. We've had, on our custom home side, we've had a couple clients that have peered at the volatility and the cost increases, and they're just unwilling to spend that sort of money. We've had a market-driven condo project that no longer penciled and had that shuttered, and we've had a couple rental projects sort of paused. Entitlements carry on. Things will continue to get designed and get to the point of starting. But it becomes really, really difficult for somebody to press go when construction cost is up, financing cost is up, variable timing, unreliability around completion, and you're betting on the market continuing to trend the right way on both a sales and a rental perspective. It's a lot to take on.
Well, prices never, I mean, we kind of know this. Nothing ever goes back again, right? It just keeps getting more expensive, and it's like the whole slippery slope of everything. The money just moves from one place to the other, and then the prices still stay high. It's just who ends up getting it. Yeah,
I have this conversation with a bunch of our clients, like during the craziness that was 2021 and I guess right at the beginning of 2022, you had a lot of very uncomfortable conversations with some of our clients, your plumber's a thief and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, he's still showing up in the same 2002 Silverado.
Yeah.
Like he's not flying private jets. He's not going on expensive trips to Maui. And there's no Lamborghini in that garage. And so the costs, I think it's been difficult to determine where all this money went. And I empathize with developers that see that and they're like, I don't understand it. I don't either. Truthfully, I don't think that I can't tell you who's ended up with all of the profits. It wasn't us, and it wasn't all of our trades.
But it's always just a little bit off everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And it amasses to a huge change.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did a 4-story wood frame in East Van 9 years ago at like $208 a foot. And that building now is like $400. It's just, the numbers are just dramatically different now, and trying to rationalize that type of change over that short of a window is really tough to do. And so it ends up being this vitriol response where you're just like, it can't be right. Check your numbers again, go and get a different quote. Somebody's making too much money. And unfortunately, it's just a product of a really crazy market over a course of a very short time frame.
Yeah, I was talking to a builder the other day, and he just threw around the comment of, we're becoming known as the high cost builder. I'm like, dude, everybody is becoming known as that. I don't think it's like an isolated thing here.
No. We're a high cost town.
Yeah.
It is sort of a product of where we're working. The projects that we're looking at in Calgary are at a minimum a 30% reduction in what we would carry from a unit cost here. You'll have some builders that will tell you it's even more than that. Vancouver and the outlying areas are just expensive. It's nice to hear that it's not just me that's being known as that, because we never wanted to be known as the low-cost builder, but you never want to be known as someone that's charging too much. Yeah. And I think that's the balance we're trying to find.
Yeah, and it's tricky because, like you were saying, it a little bit comes off of everything from everywhere. But we've gone through now, 3 years of this trending upwards and not being able to set expectations correctly. And it starts with, like what's going to happen from rate hikes and what to expect. And you just kind of get used to it. You just kind of get a little bit numb to it.
Oh man, I hope not.
I know.
It's like I was saying earlier, I really do hope that this guy clears. It's 2024 is now the year, right? We're all going to have good times in 2024. It's funny when we find ourselves in this city permits it, because it is such an insular and very popular real estate construction market. Like so many people of the people that we cross in our day-to-day work in our space, but people that are outside of it, they see our signs pop up or whatever. They're like, oh man, you're doing great. Things must just be awesome. It's like, show me your boat. and the response that I often have is like, you haven't seen the work that's gone into it, but also you just don't know what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis. I don't think that it's been as successful of a window as a lot of people that may not be in it have thought. It's been a grind and it's a challenge, whether it's the volatile markets, whether it's timeframes taking longer, whether it's a ramp up in labor costs. It's been really difficult for everybody, from cleaning contractors to mechanical contractors, drywallers, painters, ourselves, and then of course the developers. It's just been a tough few years. And once we get to a place of like steady, reliable timeframes, costs, that's where we can get back to meeting those expectations.
So this clear skies 2024. Okay.
Yeah.
What, just from a factor list, what are these things that would make blue skies from your perspective? What would make life easier in general?
Reliability of timeframes remains of paramount importance for us. We can't plan if we don't know what's going to happen. We used to be exceptionally adamant that we would only carry the work that we could satisfy based on the schedules that we were provided by our clients. That may not be the best business model right now, simply because you can't rely on those dates starting. And so you'll have a group sitting stagnant for a while. Okay. So one thing would be reliability around timeframes. I think reliability around costs is exceptionally important. So some normalcy from, you're never going to predict the fallout of a war in Ukraine having these massive impacts on the cost of steel, but here we are.
Right.
And so having the ability to rely on the costs, at least back to a standard, call it 3-4% inflation would be, inflation and cost would be nice. And then reliability around labor would remain really important for us as well. So like I said a couple times before, I think that retention is the new recruitment. Your ability to keep those that are with you, that are proven valuable quantities, happy, engaged, motivated, is more important than going and finding the best and the brightest that's not currently within your walls, because it allows you to continue to sort of grow, if not by project, by number of projects, then by size of projects. Lets you take those incremental steps. So those three things would be clear skies.
So with the labor market specifically, and the happiness and the cost of the labor in general is going to be relative to interest rates. It just will, because it's cost of living, inflation, et cetera. So, what does 2024 look like for you? If you could, do you think, I don't really see an interest rate going lower. No.
So as far as the cost of labor, I think that people need to get paid appropriately. And so
Vancouver. But where does that money come from? Because it has to come from somebody.
Right, but if there's reliability around those costs,
that makes sense.
Then a developer or whomever can plan for it. If a developer couldn't have planned for labor jumping 15% year over year when 2021 happened, that's crazy. But if they're able to go, this is what we're going to see on a year-by-year basis, then that should happen. I think that we've probably we're probably a little bit behind. People weren't making enough money to afford to live in Vancouver. Our space in particular, I think that we've now caught up. There's perhaps some people that are a little overcompensated, but now that we are where we are, if it can be stable, then I think that that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so short of actually being the high-cost builder and simply charging an awful lot more and still getting work as a result of it, you obviously have to build some efficiencies into your business to combat all of this.
Sure.
And also on the retention side, instead of saying, there's a labor shortage, we better find a way to attract people, or again, get really efficient with retention and output of your people.
Yeah. So training our staff has become exceptionally important. Longevity of our staff remains exceptionally important, simply so we learn who they are and where their weaknesses are and how we can continue to allow them to get stronger in that space. And then I think that for us, an area that we'll continue to focus on is an investment in technology and making sure that we're sort of building the building before it gets built. And so everybody's doing BIM integration at this point now. You have to. If you're not doing something that's going to allow you to model buildings, you're going to get left. And so that's super important for us. Time is money, and if we encounter something on site that could have been resolved by a model, like a good grief, I will lose my mind. And so that's something that we'll continue to invest in, integrating it so that it's not third-party reliability, but it's our own shop. Will continue to be something that we grow as well.
What are you currently doing you said training, but if you're not able to go and actually, everyone's in the same, having a difficult time recruiting boat. For retention, building up your staff, do you do anything with, do you do referrals internally? Like how do you retain your staff, keep getting the best Because what are you guys at right now? How many?
We're about 115 people company-wide. Yeah.
So that's pretty sizable. So when you have a base like that, for one, presumably they're great staff, right? You're looking for A players. You're building something.
Every one of them.
Well,
all A's.
All A's. Boom. Okay. Well, the A's that are there, they bring others with them, right? So 150, it's a lot to draw from in terms of a networking base.
Sure. Yeah. So we've got 2 full-time people in our people and culture, formerly HR department, led by Shelby Clarahue. And so she's fantastic and does a phenomenal job of sort of canvassing the market to determine where candidates might be. But you're exactly right. It's referral based. It's the best employee that we could find externally is through a point of contact with one of our staff that's existing. They're able to say really good things about us. And then conversely, they're able to stand behind the person that they're introducing. So we do offer referrals. If a staff member brings somebody in, we absolutely compensate them for that. It's a lot less expensive than a recruiter.
Totally.
And recruiters are, they're people brokers. They've got their business to work within, but they're not going to know who we are in and out. And as soon as they place someone, they're emailing the rest of my people. I know that they are. It's just a product of their business. So we try really hard to make sure that we retain our staff. If we retain our people, then our company will grow. Our projects will become bigger. Business development becomes less expensive because the same clients call us back. That's our path to success, is retention. And then it's as we find ourselves in the areas where a project may need a different area of expertise, we get into something a little bit taller, geographically different, then that's where we'll look to go and supplement. And it's tough. The market's still really, really tight. You have to show them that you're a good group to work with, that you pay not at, but likely beyond market in order to entice somebody to leave, and that the opportunity is going to exist for them to grow. Nobody's leaving laterally. Like, that just doesn't exist.
Right.
I can't go to a competitor and find a senior PM that wants to be a senior PM with us. So the project needs to be phenomenal, or the opportunity needs to be more than where they're at.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And we've gone through 3 years of people reevaluating where they are and looking for the greener grass and making jumps for small little things, but never laterally, like you said.
Yeah. I guess, so an article that Shelby forwarded a bunch of us internally last week. So the Great Resignation is now being termed the Great Regret. And so they interviewed however many thousands of people, and 78% suggested that they'd be open to a return to their former employer. And so that grass is greener thing, I think, will happen here as the market does start to stabilize. I don't think that we can continue in the sort of frenetic nature of just people hopping back and forth. You want to see what else is out there, but it's not always better. And I think that you're going to see a lot of boomerang employees that end up back where they were before, that the opportunity was something that was more comfortable. The environment was something that they've proven to be successful within. And then outside of that, you're going to need to be a pretty attractive shop to allow somebody to want to jump and stick.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so we've covered a fair bit. Some of it, I guess, would sound not doom and gloom, but like very challenging, difficult. What are you most excited about? Let's say, well, again, within whatever ability we have to know what's coming down the pipe here.
Yeah.
What are you excited about?
So I'll address the doom and gloom. I think that it's okay to be successful but real. And so explaining that there's things that could be done better doesn't take away from the success that we've had as a city to deliver certain product, the success that we've had as a company to grow and be successful, but we could do things better. And so I think that that's my typical mindset. As far as what I'm excited about right now, I'm really excited about the continued growth of our team. Our people are getting better every single quarter. It makes us, my brother and I primarily, a lot more comfortable and confident in that risk that we're undertaking. It allows us to take steps into bigger project types, be more comfortable with geographic expansion. And I'm excited about the fact that this city's never going to stop. This will always be our home base. The Lower Mainland is the area where we know every street, and we know the neighborhoods and the municipalities, and the voracious appetite for construction here, the unbelievable need for housing. will make our commercial sector successful as long as we don't fall flat. And so we just need to mind our P's and Q's and work with good people. And then on the Kindred Custom Home side, I'm really excited to see that brand flourish under its own flag. I think that we have an opportunity there because of the wealth that is in this city to do something that's amazing. It's such a different opportunity in that space versus our commercial side. Like commercial side, you can have a very altruistic and humbled approach to know that you're solving a lot of problems that our communities encounter on a day-to-day basis. On the single family side, you're building masterpieces. It truly is like architectural, it's just jewels. Yes. And it's a lot of fun when you can do stuff there where money is no object.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm excited on that to see that brand flourish in its own right, and then the continued growth of us as our city, which our business should capitalize on.
Well, that's really cool. I'll add to that and say, you have a great team. One of the reasons why we connected again to come back on here was because you've got staff, primarily this was in your marketing arm, who are out there looking to make connections, to get the name out there, and to broadcast the great things that are happening at Kindred. So there's been a few people involved in the process of getting back on and having this conversation. Really good people.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. We're very fortunate.
No, that's really cool. Quick question. Are there any interesting, unique pockets between here and, let's say, I don't know, like a Whistler, where they're building some really funky, crazy custom homes?
I haven't built any there, but I was at a friend's place in Britannia the other day, and that blew my mind, some of the houses that are going on there. So yeah, that's
a unique pocket.
Pocket?
Well, I mean, Britannia. They were going to do a huge thing there, and it just fell flat, right?
Well, yeah, there still is that piece of property right as you're coming around the corner going...
With the sand?
Yeah. So Adira and McDonald Development Corporation are doing that work in Britannia right now. That is building out the community, the townhouses, and redoing all that community amenity space, sort of right behind Mountain Women, the best burgers on 99. And that's really neat to see. But the houses up the hill there are just phenomenal. Like, some of those houses are bespoke, modern masterpieces. And I would have never, ever guessed that 7-8 years ago. So that's been pretty interesting to see. And Squamish continues to outperform what I would have thought on the single family side. So like the single family space in Squamish, people are spending millions of dollars putting houses together up there.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Britannia, and this isn't just for Vancouver, this is anybody listening, that particular little, what is even a town or like a whatever, they've got this funky mine that's used in all sorts of movie series and movies and all sorts of different things. But yes, you wouldn't know it because you just go through and you see like a couple little cafes and you do see some of that Adira townhome stuff. But if you drive through at night, you see all up in the trees, all the houses all lit up. So you never know that they're there.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
And they're beautiful.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this is a great place to tidy things up and go through our rapid fire round of questions. I think that I wonder if you'd have the same answers, or if you if this is going to be interesting to compare them to the original ones.
I can't wait.
But here we go.
Okay.
All right.
Do you have my original answers?
I don't have your original answers, but we will. We'll
should have found them.
Somebody can go back and cross compare.
As soon as I hear it, I'll be like, said that last time.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
All right, Brian. If you and we've refined this question, not construction related. If you were to be doing something else other than building a great team, a great company at Kindred Construction, what would you be doing?
Is this based in reality or
no? This is
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I have such a emotional connection to sports, so I'd probably love to say that I'd be working in a front office for a baseball team somewhere. But I tried that and it didn't happen, so that's probably not based in reality. I'd probably be down in the United States working real estate development in some form or another, somewhere warm and nice with far less onerous taxes.
Yeah, there you go. I got it. Catching it. Oh, things are exploding in the studio. Would you ever, and this is like a bit of a trend because there's so many different levels of sports teams. Let's say you got to the point where Kindred, had even more success or something like that. Would you ever buy into a piece of a sports team?
Oh man, of course. That's the dream. Absolutely.
Baseball?
Yeah.
That's what you would do?
Yeah, baseball, hockey, or basketball.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, love it. That's great. If you, you know what? And I just realized I went to the second question. Oof. I skipped one of the best ones. Bryan, what is something you do that others would think is insane?
Continue to work in this industry based on the margins that we all make.
No one's ever said that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I live a pretty normal life. I don't do a lot of insane things. And so, yeah if I were to have a conversation with somebody that worked in stocks and bonds and I told him what we did, he might think that I was insane.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're the Site Visit. We're a construction podcast. You grew up in construction. Now you're back in construction. What is your favorite, most memorable story from the job site?
I actually think I remember the one that I mentioned when I was here last. I think I spoke about a friend of mine, Nick Pattison. We were on a project down in off of Davie Street, and we ended up getting into a fire extinguisher fight, and so that was a funny time that was palatable, I guess, back in the 90s, but not necessarily anymore. But for me, I think more and more it's becoming experiences that I've had on job sites with my dad. That's nice. Developed a really different level of our relationship, and so those are the things that I've really started to cherish.
That's really cool. Well, Bryan, I got to say, it's fantastic bringing you back on here. There's so much new stuff to cover, and I would imagine that would be the same if we do round 3, which I'm sure we'll do.
I hope so. Thank you guys for having me.
Okay.
All right. Well, we got video as promised. If you love this episode and you're in construction, or you know someone who is, be sure to share each of the Site Visit episodes, smash that like button, subscribe, and tune in to all of our episodes, which will be broadcast right here on our channel. We'll see you next time.